What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. That is Mike Fuji, top right. I am Al Norfleet, and together we are at the 50 with Fuji and Fleet. And today, our guest from the Eagles Insider, Mr. Dave Spadaro. How are you, Dave?
Al, Mike, how are you? Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Sir. Thanks
Good,
for joining
good.
us.
And our next guest from the Farzy Show, Marc Farzetta. How are you, Marc?
I'm doing fantastic. It's an honor to be on with you guys, hang out with Dave, Fuji, Al. It's great to meet you. And let me just say right out of the gate, set of pipes you got, my friend. Damn.
Oh.
You should be doing voiceovers somewhere, buddy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And my co-host from Fuji Fleet, Mike Fuji. How are you, Mike?
Good, Al. Welcome, Dave. Mark, how's everybody doing tonight?
Great. Getting ready for, hey, what do you think, Mike? What's the big game coming up? What's on your mind, Mike?
Ravens Eagles, 2 days away.
That's right. Preseason football, Cozy TV. Make sure you tune in. You know that you watch it for the Rockford Files, for Columbo, Murder, She Wrote. The Olympics are on NBC 10, so tune in to Cozy TV.
All those old school TV shows. Al?
Yes, sir. Listen, before we get into anything, I want to take this time to congratulate Merle Reese on the Pete Rozelle Award and the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible recognition. He was thrilled. The Eagles brought Merrill into the huddle last week before he headed out to Canton to break down the team, and it was a great thrill for him. So it was an amazing weekend for Merrill. He's the best. We've all been blessed to be part of the Merrill Reese audience for so many years. 48 years that he's been doing this. It's incredible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I've been there at least 20 of those 48. Now, 24 of those 48.
Well, Al, you're not old enough to really appreciate Merrill all the way, so, you know.
Well, I'm close to it, though. I'm close to it. All right, go ahead,
boys?
Mike.
Dave, Mark, welcome. Want to dive in. I know you guys get all thrown questions. Philly sports, Eagles. I wanted to dive in a little bit of you guys starting your careers. Not many people may know. Dave, first I want to ask you, never knew you worked for the Philadelphia Phillies before you came to the Eagles?
No, I never did work for the Philadelphia Phillies. I worked, I went to Temple University. I did radio play-by-play for the Eales 1985 basketball team. Worked in Westchester, Pennsylvania at my hometown newspaper. And then we started Eagles Digest, a joint venture with the Eagles and a publishing company in Miami in '89. And then I joined. So at that time, you know, before the Eagles, I was doing all the teams. So covering Flyers games, covering Sixers games, covering Phillies, covering Eagles. And then joined the Eagles organization in 1997 and have not looked back. So it's been great. I can't believe it's my 28th season as part of the organization. And, you know, every day I'm reminded of, as all these legends come and go at practice with, you know, Chris Long coming into Jason Kelsey, walking into practice. Brent Selleck is helping out with the coaching staff, like Wilbert Montgomery and Jaws were there. So I've been around a long, long time, all with the Philadelphia Eagles.
I recall Philadelphia Eagles Digest. It was a great paper you guys wrote.
Thank you. Not enough people think that. Not enough people bought it, Mike, because it went. Yeah, when the Eagles, you know, came into the picture.
I had my subscription, but
thank you, buddy.
Can you touch on your interview with Fernando Valenzuela a long time ago?
I did. That you guys are doing some research. It was one of my great moments of, as a young reporter, having the balls to go up to Fernando as he was lining up for his pregame meal in the locker room. Like, I wasn't aware of like the tradition of like, don't bother the guys. And he spoke very halting English, but I was, you know, I was a really young guy then, and I was writing for, at that time, the Westchester Daily Local News, and that's kind of what launched me into the world of journalism, and then really what we all are as entertainers. And so that was a big thrill, meeting Fernando and actually having him speak to me and do an interview.
Mark, question. You used to do recordings of home runs of Darren Dalton. Can you touch on that a little bit?
I think anyone who fell in love far too early with the sound of their own voice, I am definitely one of those, probably from when I was talking and could figure out how to push play and record at the same time on those little handheld tape recorders that the reporters had back in the day and all that stuff. Whether it was Darren Dalton, whether it was Pete Incaviglia in the 93 Phils. My mom is from Baltimore. I would see a lot of games with the Baltimore Orioles. My grandfather was an usher for them for a number of years, 25 years as a matter of fact, and I would bring the recorder to the game. And I just wanted to see the story, report the story, and just hear myself tell the story as opposed to somebody else. And it was just a way that I felt like I could be a part of it without just being a spectator. And it's kind of where my love for broadcasting, storytelling, and obviously sports all kind of blossomed from that point. My parents still have that tape recorder. I don't think any of my old tapes have survived the years, but I know the tape recorder is still in a box in my parents' basement, and they're getting ready to downsize. So I better get my hands on that tape recorder in the very near future.
Yeah,
that's funny, Mark. I have reel-to-reel recordings of my Temple basketball games, and I don't even know what to do with that stuff now. Like, what do you do with reel-to-reel?
I'm sure you could digitize it somehow. Yeah, I'm sure you could, but that is wild. I am very grateful because one thing I should mention also, another Temple guy right here as well. I am so grateful. I think my class was the last class to actually physically splice tape and get the paper for the kids at home. All right, it wasn't all just highlight and delete. It was splice, actually cut with a razor, and then you had to tape it together, and then you had to make sure that everything ran smoothly on it. That's how you physically cut tape. That's how you physically edited back in the day. So I have some experience on the real. I know, right? Good God, man.
Good God, man. Wasn't it called? Maybe I'm older than you for sure. The S splice. I remember my dad showing me how to do an S splice. It was called the S splice. It was like a little machine, and it would make a splice in the shape of an S, and then you would put the puzzle back together, clean, smooth, seamless. It took skill.
Oh yeah. No, I didn't have that. So they just gave us a straight cut. That's it.
But you had the voice, so you're good.
Right. Somebody else will cut it. Somebody else will cut it.
All right, now let's get right into the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this question's for both of you. Dave, you first. Is Jalen Hurts without his running skills?
Well, Jalen Hurts has shown that he can win from the pocket, but I think that he's always fashioned himself as a triple threat: the arm, the legs, and the brain.
Yeah.
And I think in today's NFL, it's really hard to win at a super high level if you can't at least get away from pressure and be at some kind of a threat. Now, I would argue that you can't win on legs alone, that you have to ultimately win from the pocket. But yeah, no, I mean, I think he's gifted to have great mobility, great strength and power in the legs, as we've seen with his success in the tush push, the brotherly shove. So, someday maybe in his career, he won't have that ability, but right now he certainly does.
Mm-hmm.
Al, I'm going to tell you, I hear the question. I understand the question. I hate the question. And I'm going to tell you why. Whenever I hear that, and I love Jalen, I'm a huge fan of Jalen Hurts. What the guy's got between his ears is phenomenal. The mental strength. I have joked many times about, in an age where we talk about mental health and mental toughness, he is a model to follow. Jalen Hurts. I have all the respect in the world for what he's got. But when it comes to the uniqueness of his game that the Eagles spoke so much about going into last season, that's something I want to see them embrace. But the reason I don't like the question is because nobody ever says, is Patrick Mahomes if he can only throw over the top? Like, no, he's not limiting his game to that. Part of what makes him so special, so incredible, is the amount of ways he could beat you. Jalen Hurts, use every ability that you have in your tool shed to be able to beat the opponent. In one game, if that's scampering in overtime against the Buffalo Bills to win, then by golly, you go out there and do it. If it's airing the football out time and time again, if that's what it's going to take to win the game, then you go out there and you do it. And as soon as you can cut down on the turnovers, and I know that's a big glaring thing from last year, and I have confidence he'll do that this year, especially if they really are concentrating on maybe keeping things closer to the line of scrimmage and taking advantage of those check down throws to a guy like Saquon Barkley, for instance, who isn't a bad guy to put the pigskin in the hands of. But the thing that I go back to with Jalen Hurts is, why am I trying to limit him when his versatility is what makes him so special? So to answer your question, I think if you took away the one great attribute of any quarterback in the NFL, as great as they might be, guess what? They're not going to be that great.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Mark? Mike, go ahead.
Question for both of you gentlemen. Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox retired. Now the torch is passed to Cam Jurgens, Jordan Davis, and Jalen Carter. Are these gentlemen ready to step in there?
Yeah, that's one of the great questions of the season. And I personally think that Cam is going to be a star center. I saw him as a rookie a few years ago in the preseason. He was outstanding. He was dominant. I think that you have to understand that and give him some kudos here. To go from center, add weight, and become a good starting right guard, that's really hard to do. There are players who play both center and guard, and they're able to do that mostly on a reserve basis. Jurgens turned himself into a good right guard. I think he's bigger, faster, stronger, younger than Jason, who is a superstar player. There's an experience that's not there, but the only way you gain experience is to play. So no worries there. Side, Fletcher, really productive player. Eagles, interestingly, did not add a veteran defensive tackle. So why didn't they add a veteran defensive tackle? Because they have made the calculation, and we'll find out if it's right or wrong, that Jalen, Jordan, Milton Williams, Marlon Tuipulotu, et cetera, will be enough to fill the shoes of Fletcher Cox. We all knew that Fletcher and Jason were going to retire. So from a playing standpoint, I feel good about it, but I also recognize that there are players who are on the spot. And if this goes south, then the Eagles made a bad calculation. From a leadership standpoint, I got to tell you guys, how the Eagles do at the end of the year last year. What was the record after 10-1? How were they at the end of the year?
1-6.
Not good. Not good.
So, how was the leadership at that point?
Seemed like there wasn't any.
So, my concerns about losing Fletch and Jason as leaders, hey, it's time for somebody else to step up.
Big time.
As far as Cam Jurgens goes, I have a hell of a lot of confidence that Cam Jurgens, from a physical standpoint, can go out there and do a lot of the same things, not at the level yet, but a lot of the same things that Jason Kelce could do. Get upfield. Next thing you know, you blink and he's 10 yards up the line of scrimmage, making blocks for whoever's coming out of the backfield. I have every bit of confidence in that. What I am more concerned with, and I hate the phrase "will see," and Fuji hears me say this all the time. I'm not a will see guy, but there are certain things that you have to sit back and go, I'm not going to know until I see it. Until I see communication with great fluidity on the field, on game day, whether that be a couple snaps in the preseason, whether that be week 1 in Brazil, I'm not going to know what the communication is between Cam Jurgens and Jalen Hurts and how they're shifting protection. And I loved hearing Kellen Moore's talk about yesterday, I think it was, where he was talking about Cam Jurgens and Jalen Hurts are always talking. They're always talking. They're trying to really figure out what makes the other tick and have a better understanding for when it comes time to snap that football, where they're picking up the pressure and how they're shifting that protection. So that's one aspect of the game that we just won't know. I know that Cam Jurgens can get upfield and make blocks. I know he can sit at the line of scrimmage and hold his block. I know he can protect his quarterback, but when it comes to the mental aspect, that's where the great experience of a guy like Jason Kelce that we've been able to enjoy for the past decade plus, that's where we're really going to see maybe not a huge drop-off, but probably the biggest drop-off between Kelce to Cam Jurgens. And as far as the leadership and the impact of a guy like Fletcher Cox, I fall on people understanding the situation they're in. And if people understand the situation they're in and they're not denial about it, that gives me a lot more confidence because they understand the mountain that is in front of them that they have to climb. And at minicamp, when Jordan Davis talked about, quote, no one's coming to save us, I thought, this guy understands it. Fletcher Cox is going to be in there in the interior of that defensive line, taking up that double team to help somebody get open on the edge. Guess what, Jordan Davis? Guess what, Jalen Carter? That's you now. You're now responsible for helping out guys like Josh Sweat or now Bryce Huff and Brandon Graham, making sure that they can get off the line of scrimmage and get that edge rush going for this Eagles team, because it's not going to be Fletcher Cox anymore. And I also loved, to add to that, just from a talent perspective, not so much leadership perspective, I loved hearing from Vic Fangio when he was talking about how when he was in Miami, they were hitting up Howie Roseman to try to trade for Milton Williams, but Howie wouldn't pull the trigger on the deal. So there is some excitement that I think Vic Fangio has of not just having Jalen Carter at his disposal and having a guy like Jordan Davis at his disposal, but also having a guy like Milton Williams at his disposal to maybe add to that depth that a lot of people have questioned going into this training camp.
Now, I heard this week, I can't remember which sports show I was watching, but what they were saying, it really puzzled me. They were saying that Jalen cannot develop when he has strong receivers like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Now, to me, that is a ridiculous statement. What do you guys think about it?
I think I know the show because I think I was asked the question on the show, and I'll answer the question the exact same way. I don't care. The purpose isn't to like just make sure Jalen Hurts develops into some great. Guess what? If he wins the Super Bowl, he's a pretty great quarterback. And whether he does it with terrible wide receivers or he does it with great wide receivers, I am not cutting A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith because I want Jalen Hurts to develop more. No, I want Jalen Hurts and the Eagles to win. One player, one personality, one front office executive, whatever, is never bigger than the team. And that's something that I've learned from the Chip Kelly era with the Eagles. That's something I learned with the Sam Hinkie era with the 76ers. For me, it's not about the one player or the one person developing and getting better. It's about the team getting better. If Jalen Hurts is pretty damn good with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley and all those guys are under contract for more than just this year, then I don't care. The development will come. So as long as the Eagles are winning, the development is not an isolated incident there with Jalen Hurts. That's where I stand on it.
I mean, Farzy, you're breathlessly excited, and I can't top that. I've never even heard. I can't even imagine that kind of take. So, yeah, I'm cool with AJ and Devontae and Dallas, and let's go win some football games.
There you go. No, but don't win too many, because then it'll be too easy for Jalen Hurts. And then, what if it's too easy? Then he'll never be ready. Oh my God. Sorry.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
Mike?
Dave, you're 28 years with the Eagles, besides Super Bowl 52. Is there just a memorable moment that stands out to you as maybe your favorite or one of your favorites, if you could talk?
I mean, the 2022 season was great, and up until halftime of that Super Bowl 57, it was awesome. I mean, honestly, Mike, I love every bit of it. So the games they kind of run together after a while. Like, it's weird. I don't, going to this first Super Bowl, my dad was able to join me in 2004. That was really special. My kids and my family, were there for 2017 to win the Super Bowl. I mean, the moment for me was emceeing the Super Bowl parade. That was an incredible experience for me. So, yeah, I mean, it's like I just, you get so wrapped up into it, Mike. Like, I think at some point maybe I'll fanboy out about it, but I will say I was looking through some of my photos in my phone that goes back, 15 years, and it's like, wow, you go through, I've met all these guys and had all these great times. But yeah, I mean, it's just, when you work with these, you don't feel like you're special. You feel like you're just part of a team. You're just doing your job. You do anything you can do to help the team win. You meet a ton of incredible fans and people along the way. You recognize that the Eagles touch every single demographic, and you recognize how much the team means to generations of families. And so, that's the kind of stuff that's really special. I think there's been so many kids that we've helped, so many families that we've given aid to, so many experiences that we've provided. Those kind of almost outweigh the games. And then I love the kids who play. I mean, they're young men who've worked really, really hard to get there, and it's really hard to stay. Once you make it, it's really hard to stay. So obviously I prefer the wins, and but it's hard to single out one or two because it's all been, I mean, I've been very, very, it's been very special for me to be there that long, and hopefully another 28.
And killing it. Al.
Yes. What is the biggest battle in camp this year thus far?
I mean, I'll start with it. I would tell you that right guard is really, as far as the starting job right now, is it, Tyler Steen looked like he was getting into that role, and then he goes down with the ankle injury, and Mekhi Becton has been in and out, and he's got some very special traits for a guy that large who's played tackle most of his career to move inside to guard. It's just a matter of him staying on the field. I would probably say right guard. And then there's some backup roles, like, again, receivers, 3, 4, 5. Who are your starting linebackers? I kind of have a sense of who they might be going into the preseason. Safety, is it Blankenship next to C.J. Gardner-Johnson? The other starting cornerback position, they rotated in like 3 guys there throughout the course of camp, but I would probably stick with right guard. Farzy, what do you think?
Yeah, I would have to go with the cornerback position for me. As far as true battle where guys for the most part have been healthy, I look at the cornerback position because you're moving a veteran who had, yes, a down year in James Bradbury to the safety position all of a sudden. Now you have a guy who's been a pretty good slot corner for you throughout his career, barring injury in Avonte Maddox. He's playing the safety position. And you have 2 first-round picks that hopefully at some point this season, both of them will be ready to go. But if I had to roll dice on it right now, I think you're looking at Darius Slay. I think you're looking at, starting opposite him, Keely Ringo with Quenyon Mitchell as your slot corner. I find it very interesting, though, that they invested so much into it and held on to what they already had in Bradbury, whether it was his idea, whether it was the team's idea, and they decided to move him to that safety spot. There's a lot of musical chairs going on right now in that position. So I think a lot of guys are going to be battling that position out. I think there'll be more competition there when Cooper DeJean is able to come back into the fold as well. But one of the things I absolutely loved, whether it was at minicamp or it was Monday that Keely Ringo addressed the media, I love that through the first-round picks, he was asked about it, and he said, basically, don't forget about me. Like, I just want the competition. It wasn't about, hey, wait, hold on a second. I was just a rookie. I played pretty well. I was challenged. I did well. And now you're hitting the reset button on the position by getting not 1 but 2 guys. Oh, and there's already a veteran now I got to beat out. All right. No, he didn't. And now Isaiah Rodgers is competing for that spot also. So for me, I look at it like this. I look at it like you have to love competition. One thing that is really true of all the real successful athletes I've had a chance to talk to over the years, one thing is just remains the same. It's not just the love of the sport, because for the most part, just about everybody has that. Not everyone, but just about everyone, unfortunately. There are the people that love what the sport brings them as opposed to what they could give to the sport. But when you talk about guys that love what they do, you're talking about guys that love the competition. And I think Keely Ringo loves to play football. I think Keely Ringo loves the competition. He's not going to shy away from anything that could just be, present a little bit more adversity in front of him. So yeah. I look at that cornerback spot. The right guard is interesting, though, especially with Mekhi Becton playing as well as he's been and Tyler Steen coming back from the injury. That would be a very close second the way I'm ordering it out of training camp or in training camp.
It's interesting because, what the media has become is a lot of hot takes. And the truth is that these guys have been practicing against each other since May. And so Keely Ringo knows every move of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and et cetera. So that's why these preseason games, that's why the joint practice next week against New England are important. You have to see the players in a foreign environment. And I think that's what Vic Fangio is doing. Vic is just trying to rotate as many players in as he can, give as many looks as he can, give everybody a fair shot. And it's a very much an open competition.
I look forward to Quentin Mitchell calling somebody on the Patriots their route trash. I want to see how that one goes.
Right. Right.
It's weird because he doesn't talk when he's like not playing football, but he talks on the field.
The AJ, I forgot about that story before somebody brought it up to AJ Brown this week, and AJ Brown was like, "Dude, you don't even talk. Like, you barely even say hi." And the next thing out of your mouth is that route was trash, by the way. And then to see him talk about it, like the guy's got this real welcoming smile, like you would think he's a bit of a talker, but yeah, apparently not. Apparently not.
No.
Question for both of you gentlemen. As far as the slot receiver, who do you think standing out the most out of John Ross, Johnny Wilson, and Paris Campbell?
Well, Paris Campbell's been hurt. He's had a groin injury, so he hasn't been standing out at all. And it's not really necessarily the slot receiver. It is the third receiver, because I think they have an idea that they want to mix and match and maybe move a tight end in there. They could slide in Devontae to the slot and try to create the best matchups. John Ross, if he can stay healthy, and that has been a big if in his career, would certainly have the experience, the explosiveness that you're looking for. Johnny Wilson has flashed and has made some plays. Can he hold up in this NFL? He's a big, long body. Does he have the strength to do it? Inside, you get banged around inside. So I don't know if I would give anybody at this point, honestly, not ducking the question, Mike, but like there's not really an advantage. I don't see it yet. And again, that is very, as I've said, third, fourth, fifth wide receivers. Who are they? And I know we all, got tired of watching Quez Watkins, but at least you knew going in what you had. Eagles don't know what they have right now.
Okay. Now, last season, especially the last 5 or 6 games, we had problems handling the blitz, and especially when we was running the spread. And that gave defenses chance to run a gap 8 with man protection. And this year, with the new offense and running the motions, you think we should be doing much better at the blitz pickup?
I think Kellen Moore, that's one of Kellen's priorities, to work with Jalen on that and to get the hot routes going and easy completions. And I think that, as Mark pointed out earlier, getting the ball to Saquon, you'd like to get his completion percentage up to 66, 67, 68%. That would really keep some drives going and keep things alive. And I think that would be really exciting for the Eagles offense. And the way it generally works is, we feel like we have a sense of what the offense is going to be, right? And then the preseason's over, and then training camp practices are closed. And there's a 2-week gap between the end of preseason and the start of the regular season. And in that time, they will introduce the game plan for the Green Bay Packers. And they will introduce within the game plan some very specific things to attack what they perceive as the Packers' weaknesses. So, will the Green Bay Packers blitz Jalen Hurts? What are your counters for Jalen Hurts? We have seen more motion. We have seen him under the center position more. We have seen a lot of running from the quarterbacks in this training camp incorporated into the, kind of the basis of the offense. I really feel like last year teams came in with the idea that we're not going to let Jalen Hurts run. We are not going to let him gash our defense. We are going to control the line of scrimmage and plug up the gaps and make Jalen win from the pocket. And his giveaways went from 8 interceptions, eight total giveaways in 2022 to 20 in 2023. His yards per carry went down from 4.6 to 3.9 yards. So I think it's really important that Jalen runs the football. I think it's really important that they pick up the blitz. I think it's really important that everyone's on the same page with an offensive line that has a new right guard and has a new center. And so when you have new faces up there, you got to, as we've all talked about here, get everybody on the same page. Mark, you missed the whole thing. I just answered all the questions. There's no more questions.
Can you hear us, Mark?
Is the screen for? I wonder if the screen's frozen.
Mark is frozen.
Okay. Well, we'll keep it going.
He looks good, though.
Hey, Dave, I want to ask you an article that came out today as far as the end of last season. It came out that Jalen called ex-Giants defensive coordinator Wink Martindale about, just about how they were playing, like how now Wink Martindale schemed for the Giants. Can you touch on that a little bit?
No. I think both Nick and Jalen answered that question at the press conference today. I think they feel the relationship's really good, and I don't know if Jalen called Wink Martindale at all. And frankly, I don't care about last year. I care only about this year. So it was a down year for everyone. Everybody's turned the page from 2023 to now 2024, and that is for Jalen to answer. I cannot shed any more factual information on it, and I think it would be very irresponsible to answer with an opinion. That's what drives me crazy about a lot of the fan chatter and the media chatter. It is uninformed opinion. That is something that I do not mess around with.
Can you sense, just being at training camp and around the team, like a different attitude than last year coming off the Super Bowl?
No, I mean, it's always, honestly, Mike, it's always a very, very positive attitude. I mean, we are all part of the NFL, and there's only 32 teams in the NFL. And if you walk into the NovaCare complex, which is a beautiful facility, and you are not fired up, and you are not optimistic, and you are not part of the team, then you will not last long there. And so I will tell you that it's always optimistic. Last year, they were extremely optimistic at this time. The Eagles were 10-1 until we got to December, and then it all fell apart. So, it really never changes. Like, your job is to do your job. And if you do not do your job, no matter what role you have, you just won't be around long. I'll give you an example. We posted a social media coordinator job and got like 5,000 applications. So do you think somebody who has that job is going to walk in with their head down, they're bummed out, and if they do, they're gone. And there's a long line of people who are going to take your job. So I think there's a great confidence. I think the acquisition of Saquon Barkley was a great boost to this team. And I thought the approach the Eagles had in the offseason to bring in some veterans, very aggressive approach, and at the same time, really rely on these last three draft classes, makes for a competitive roster. I think the Eagles will be a team that should be right there. They should compete for everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, Dave, we still haven't gotten Mark back, but you're close enough to the team. What is your grade on the draft class this past season?
I mean, it's an incomplete. Again, hey, there's Mark.
Hey, guys.
About the text.
I cannot, Al. I can't give a grade yet. I mean, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I think Q is.
Dave's freezing up.
We have a storm going on. I can say that much.
Okay.
At all. I am obsessed with Jalix Hunt. I can't wait to see him in a game. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens in preseason. Preseason's a different animal than the training camp, and regular season's a different animal than training camp than preseason.
Okay,
I agree with everything Dave said.
Okay. Okay. What's the status on Cooper?
Yeah, I mean, he's rehabbing
injury
from the
coming?
hamstring. Yeah, I don't know when he's coming back. I mean, would love it if he was able to come back and get some time in the preseason before he starts things up in the regular season. But popped the hamstring and been working through it. It's really something he's got to overcome some odds here, missing some reps that he'll never get back.
Mike?
Mark, while you were gone, there's an old story. I don't know if you want to tell this. Talk
Go
about
ahead.
John Davidson when he had to go get the soda. I don't know. I just saw this in the story and just popped out. Like,
It was It was one of the first games I had ever worked for NBC, NHL and NBC, and like the state of emergency as a production runner, and I was a senior at Temple at the time. For whatever reason, the game was going to go on the air, or it wasn't, but John Davidson needed to get Diet Pepsi. And the all of humanity stopped, and I became the person in charge of making sure John Davidson had Diet Pepsi. Now, it sounds like it should be a very easy thing, but for whatever reason, it's one of those things. If you've ever been a production runner, the easiest thing is often the hardest thing. And I just remember I went to 5 or 6 different places that did not, for whatever reason, have Diet Pepsi, and I finally went to a CVS, and they had Diet Pepsi. And it said a little thing on it that said with Splenda. And I was like, well, it's Diet Pepsi. I guess all Diet Pepsi. I don't even drink soda. I guess all Diet Pepsi has Splenda, whatever. So I bought a 12-pack of it, ran it in to the booth, or drove it back to the Wells Fargo Center, ran it upstairs. John Davidson's there. He looks at me like I'm a hero. And he's like, you found the Diet Pepsi. And I'm like, you bet your ass I did there, Mr. Davidson, all cocky and whatnot. And then I go back down to the production truck. And right as I got down to the loading dock area where the trucks are at the Wells Fargo Center, my production manager goes, Mr. Davidson would like you to go back up to the booth. And I was like, what? Okay. And he goes, he doesn't seem happy. I go, what are you talking about? We're best friends. What are you talking about? So I go back up there, and I'll never forget the way he did it. He never looked back. He never turned around as I walked into the door. He heard the door open. He was still facing the ice. The game, we're still about 2 hours before game time. And he just held the little Diet Pepsi can up with his pinky out. And he was like, this has Splenda. I won't be drinking the Splenda. And then just put it down. And I just went, what the hell do I do now? Do you still want the Diet Pepsi? And he just gave me this, forget it. And I don't think I ever felt more of a failure in my life than that exact moment. But
you bounced back, Mark.
I bounced back. And you know what's funny? I've told Jody McDonald that story, our friend Jody Mack. And he goes, oh, no, JD's the best. JD comes on whenever I ask him. Love JD. And I'm like, it's one moment. I was 21 years old, and I thought I was going to end my career before it even started because I couldn't get the right Diet Pepsi for Mr. John Davidson. I love that you brought up that story, Fuji. That's hilarious.
Okay, question for both of you guys. Do you know what the new kickoff rule is and how will it affect the game?
I do, and it will be one of the fascinating things to watch. I think in a Hall of Fame game, there were 5 returns out of 6 kickoffs, which is the goal of the NFL changing the rule. In the Super Bowl, I think there were 14 kickoffs, all were touchbacks. So they want to bring back the return.
Right.
And it's a great mystery how teams will cover it, play it in coverage and in the return game. And so the idea here is that the teams line up on the receiving side of the 50-yard line. The blocking team and the coverage team are 5 yards apart, so they're not running down the field and colliding at full speed. There's a kickoff zone, a safety zone from the goal line to the 20-yard line. And when the ball is kicked there, then the coverage team cannot move until the ball is touched. So, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of things that are to be seen. I believe the Eagles have been very coy about their intentions. They've literally shown nothing in training camp. Doesn't mean they haven't shown it in the walkthroughs when the media is not there. Mm-hmm. And I think every team's just going to experiment with it. An group of officials came in and had a little conversation with the media. And the line that I liked was the roll time when you kick it off is now the new hang time. So I don't really know how that makes sense if you can't move until the guy touches the ball. But there's a lot of things to be ironed out about this. A lot of confusion about it. It is totally new, and the idea here is to have a lot more kickoffs, a lot more big plays on kickoffs. Right. It's been a dead play.
I can tell you that I can't give you the X's and O breakdown like Dave just did as far as where they are and all that, but I do like it when I see it. I can tell you that. When I watched the Hall of Fame game, I watched it specifically because I wanted a better understanding of what the rule was going to look like, the new kickoff rule was going to look like in the NFL, and I am all for getting more returns. It's a very exciting play, and when you see somebody break through the kicking team's line, that gets you up out of your seat. That's something that is going to get a lot of people back into it and not just be a wasted play. And it's the thought that I had was when you look back on the point after touchdown, when you look at back at the PAT, they moved that back. And I remember Bill Belichick doing the moratorium on it, just saying, hey, look, why are we giving our audience a play that is like 99.8% successful? Like, that's not exciting. We move it back, and we also give the option of the 2-point conversion, and then all of a sudden that's a lot more exciting play after a touchdown. So it's a very similar thing, just trying to make the game more and more exciting. I am a little surprised that they did it, only because it still is a physical play, and the big thing for the NFL over the last decade plus has been player safety, and this is obviously not it's a safer version of what it was.
It's way safer.
It's way safer. It's way safer, but you're more likely to have a play on it as opposed to a touchback. So that's the only thing. This could be, I think, the happy medium between the previous plays that we all grew up with and what we have seen over the last handful of years.
And by the way, let me clarify something. You can not move in coverage until the receiving team touches the ball or the ball hits the ground. And that's why the idea is that if you just skip it down the field and it's bouncing all over the place, you're eating up all this time, and the players are lined up on the 40-yard line, and they're able to get down there quicker. So I think it's really fascinating. And, hey, it could turn out that teams are backed up to the 9-yard line. I mean, who knows? But the idea is that most of the concussions came when the blocking team was running from here and the receiving team was kicking from the 35, or the kicking team was running from the 35, and they collided there. That's where the concussions came in. So it is to introduce a more dynamic play, but it's also to make it a safer play.
Now, how will it affect the onside kick?
You're not allowed to do an onside kick until the fourth quarter, and you're not allowed to, if I have this correct, you're not allowed to do it unless you're trailing. Or I'm not even sure if you're allowed to do it if you're tied, but you're not allowed to do it unless you're trailing, and you have to inform the other team that you're doing an onside kick.
Oh, wow.
Not liking that rule. I don't like that rule. Not like Andy Reid in 2000 starting the season off, with the onside kick versus Eales in the pickle juice game.
Well, Mike, how about you start the season off with a big blooper, and you land it and the ball bounces around and your team goes and recovers it. It's a different kind of onside kick.
Right.
But in effect, I mean, you're going to see a lot of teams get very creative, things that we don't even think of. They have been meeting about this since the NFL passed the rule. So we're talking about it here for 5 minutes. I really haven't thought that much about it otherwise. I'm excited to see what they do. I mean, hey, teams may use, Camus Grugier Hill to kick off. He's a better tackler than their kicker, and use him as a kickoff specialist. So Cam Jurgens may kick off for the Eagles. Who knows? I mean, I think that they've done a lot of thinking about this, and I think it's going to be really fun.
As far as a question for both of you gentlemen, what do you expect to see the Eagles do preseason game number 1 come Friday night?
I mean, Dave, I don't know. It's a lot of it has to do with the weather, and I know that was a big theme for Nick Sirianni today about who was going to be playing, how long they were going to be playing, all about the weather, if they're going to be playing, all that stuff. As far as the weather goes for Friday, if it's, let's just say, pristine conditions, then I want to see Jalen Hurts out there with Cam Jurgens. I want to see Jalen Hurts out there with Kellen Moore in his ear calling plays. I want to see how all that goes. Do I need to see it for an entire quarter? Obviously not. Do I want to see it for a series or a little more, absolutely. But I'm a big proponent of just getting that out of the way so that when you do kick off the regular season, the least amount of things are abnormal. And I think that's what the preseason is there for, other than what Dave mentioned earlier and the position battles and how it matters when you're talking about the third wide receiver and you're trying to organize who your linebackers are and your defensive tackles, your edge rushers, and your right guard, all that. There's 2 new coordinators that need to get used to players hearing them as well. Vic Fangio said last week that when he talks to his players over the years, they want to play. Football players, go figure, they want to play. I would love to see them out there for a series or 2, even if it's just a series, just to have that be the first time that they hear Kellen Moore or hear Vic Fangio in their headsets.
It's interesting, Mark. I don't really know what they're going to do, but a series or 2, I get it. Keep in mind, there's 2 things that I'm referencing here. There's a joint practice the following week against the Patriots. The Eagles treat that as a game. And then in the history of Nick Sirianni here, they haven't played their starters very much. They played them a little bit, but not, Jalen, etc. And they started in 2022 8-0, and they started last year with a new offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson. I think they started that season 10-1. And so what happened down the stretch to the Eagles had nothing to do with what happened in preseason. So based on the history, I guess I'd be surprised if they played the starters. Now, defensively, that's a different story because we don't know who the starters are. But I would be surprised if Jalen Hurts played, I guess.
Well, hopefully we can get the game in because I know we're supposed to have some really, really bad weather.
We're getting the game in
now.
out. I'm on the sidelines. I'm doing sidelines. We are getting the game in. If it's just rain, let's go. We are getting the game in. Did I mention Cozy TV? It's on. Forget about the Olympics. Forget about the breakdancing finals. I know
Colombo.
The skateboard finals are going to have everybody riveted. So make sure you're there.
You had me at Colombo, Spuds. You had me at Colombo.
Exactly. It's you guys have the program channeled in.
Exactly. You know what? Bring Peter Falk back somehow, and have him tell the players who's cut. There's just one more thing. You're no longer an Eagle.
One more. Hey, there's one more thing here. There's one more thing here.
Okay,
have everybody in the sidelines smoking cigars.
We got about 4 minutes left. I want to get this one question in here. Jordan Mailata came to us through the International Pathway Program, and now they have another individual.
No, he didn't come through that. Well, he did come through that program, but they used a draft pick for him, and so they weren't. Like the kid they have now from Australia.
Mm-hmm.
He has 3 years, as Matt Leo did, 3 years to where he can be on the Eagles' protected roster. Okay. He's an offensive lineman. He's not quite as big as Jordan. There's nobody as big as Jordan in the world. But, if Jeff Stoutland can turn him into something, that would not be an amazing thing.
Right. Mike?
Mark, Dave, as far as that guys making the team, I know when they had 4 preseason games, it was always the third game that the starters will at least play a series or a half. Now, is it the second game or the third game really still? Is that
it's not anything for the Eagles. I don't know. It's not going to be the third game for teams. I think it would probably for those teams, and it could be the Eagles playing, who knows? For those teams playing their starters a little bit, I think it would be the second game. But again, the Eagles are going to New England next week. Going to be one day of joint practices. That's the preseason game.
Pay attention to those practice battles because, like Dave said earlier, it's all about those preseason joint training camp sessions that have become the new preseason game. That's where they can, what do they call it? What's the word they always use? Controllable environment, more controllable environment.
Right.
That's what they want to evaluate it now.
Yeah. As much as we want to see, as much as we want answers, as much as we want to see the guys, and we think that it's beneficial, I think that there's a lot of confidence that Kellen and Jalen and Cam and AJ and all these guys have practiced very well together and that they'll be ready for the Packers in Sao Paulo. And so I just don't know what the benefit would be. But I don't know, man. Maybe Nick has a different thought and wants to see his regulars play. I don't know what he's going to plan to do on Friday night.
Okay, good. Well, listen, guys, it's been a pleasure. It's been very informative. And Dave, I see you tomorrow night on the bus.
That's right. I'll be on
Mark
bus
is
6, Al. I'll be on bus 6, okay?
Absolutely.
Try to get bus 6.
Absolutely.
I'll be on the back.
Let me
one.
drive a little bit. Can I drive?
I'm always one. You can't get me back there at 6.
Hey, by the way, we have if I can just do a little plug. If
Yes.
you're not going to Brazil, and you want to watch the game on September 6th in a really cool environment, we have our season kickoff watch party at Lincoln Financial Field. People will be able to go on the field. We have these huge screens that are going to be set up. It's going to be a really cool environment, halftime drone show. Check it out at PhiladelphiaEagles.com. Very affordable pricing. For those who may not have a chance to get down to Lincoln Financial Field for games, it's going to be a really wonderful environment. And thank you for letting me put that plug in.
Absolutely.
Mark, Dave, it was a pleasure having you guys on.
Oh, pleasure being here. Thanks for having me, guys. Dave,
Yeah, our
always good to
pleasure,
see
guys.
you.
Thank you. Really fun. Enjoyed it. Thanks so much for having us.
Al, pleasure to meet you. Fuji, always good to see you, bud.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, guys. This has been At the 50 with Fuji Fleet with Marc Farzetta and Dave Spadaro. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a good evening, guys.
Have a good night.
Thank
Go
you.
Birds.
Go Birds. Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Come on, Farzy, give me one.
EAGLES Eagles, baby.
All right, go Birds. Go
Go
Birds.
Birds. Go Birds, hon.